Hi, Kimberly here, and this is part one of my four-part series entitled Saying Yes to More. I needed to start this video outside. In my mind and heart, nothing speaks about more generously than nature itself. I can feel the wind rushing across my skin, and my skin responds with tingling and opening up and getting excited. It's a beautiful fall day here in Colorado. I don't know if you can see the clouds and the mountains in the distance. But nature's big. And you know, we are a part of nature, you and I. Have you ever found when you've been outside that it's inspired you? That you have felt a certain oneness with nature, or at least had your energy increase? This brings me to the heart of our topic, saying yes to more. Do you want more joy in your life? A joy that's infectious, a joy that not only gives you more and more energy, but inspires those around you. Would you like more peace, so that as your life has twists and turns, you are responding with an equanimity that gives you freedom and insight? Do you want to say more to the desires that are at the heart of your own passions? Do you want to offer yourself in even more service, coming from a place that's always replenished? That's what this video is all about. But have you ever felt discouraged in the face of these desires? Have you ever felt a certain despair because you recognize the desire and you either find that it goes unfulfilled for a long period of time, or find the path feels very difficult? Have you ever wondered if maybe now just isn't the time? Or have you been told that maybe your desire isn't meant to be fulfilled? I want to invite you to put that all aside and step into the possibility that these desires at the very heart of who and what you are meant to be fulfilled, and not only fulfilled, but magnified through your life. I want to help you tap that inner resource to say yes to this inspiration, and also to stay in that yes, moment by moment by moment. I want to show you that the path is learning that you are your own guide. Maybe you've heard that and maybe you haven't, but my entire role is to facilitate you discovering that you're the guide in that process and that you can depend on yourself as a guide. This more is something I want to speak to before I get into the body of this video, which is about saying yes to your inspired life. You may find yourself in the more that's from a place of dissatisfaction, longing for satisfaction. Maybe you long for more freedom that you're not experiencing. Maybe you long for more connection and you're not finding it. Or perhaps you're someone who's feeling completely satisfied right now, and yet there's that niggling within that meant to become and magnify even more. Isn't it crazy? That word coming up again. And maybe you're somewhere on the spectrum. In my life's work, I have worked with individuals on this end and on this end and everywhere in between. And what that has taught me is that this quality of the more, of the living more, is universal to us all. And if it's universal, then we must be wired for it. but I don't want you to take my word for it. I'm speaking from my own experience, but what I'd like you to do is to entertain the possibility that it might be true for you. Go on a journey, an adventure, an exploration with me. Wrestle with what I have to present. Try it on for size and see if it works for you. It has worked for me, and it's worked for tens of thousands of people that I have had the pleasure of working with. But your path to your truth is a solitary journey. Think about all the self-help books that are out there these days. Every one is written by somebody who has gone on a journey. They've experienced a desire, and in that desire, they allowed it to lead them on something of what I would consider a hero's journey of stepping into the unknown and discovering, finding the fulfillment revealed to them. And then they come back to tell us about it in a book. And we learn about it from life stories. We learn about it through methodologies, through teaching, through courses, through experiential practices. And some work for some, and others work for others. So step into what it means to say yes from my own experience. Let's try this on. Sometimes we're told that more might be a kind of grasping, that we're being dissatisfied with our lives, that there's something needy within us. And undoubtedly, as human beings, it is a growth in maturity to learn what it means to have a desire and what it means to act on it that stays true to the integrity of that desire. Yes, sometimes we do reach for things that aren't really going to satisfy us. However, at the heart of these longings and these desires that you have and that I have is the mechanism, is the organizing factor for their fulfillment. And the tension and the gap between the desire and the fulfillment isn't meant to squash you or leave you feeling discouraged or despairing. It's meant to push you into a new quality of your own life. It's meant to shake you up in a way that new life can happen, or the life that you have taking on greater magnanimity. So, maybe we've met and maybe we haven't. My name is Kimberly Braun. I am a minister, a retreat leader, a meditation coach. I am a former Carmelite nun, a Reiki master, a lover of seeking and exploring these playgrounds where we discover the unknown parts of ourselves and discover source and life force at our very center. And all these roles are just roles. They have just offered me the personal setup that I could do the diving in, and that I might learn tools and tips and perspectives and practices that can be helpful for others like you on your journey. My whole passion is facilitating people just like you living an inspired life. So let's start out with the title, Saying Yes to More. Now I'm talking about an inspired moment here. Oftentimes, when inspiration happens, I know it does for me and for many others, when inspiration happens, there is a sensible experience of having arrived. Harmony, oneness, peace, joy, freedom, insight, wisdom, all seem to be ours in the moment. And inspiration seems to come and go. Now, have you ever had an inspired moment where you felt like you had arrived so clearly that you thought you would never return to a life that did not have that vibrancy, only to find that it happened, that you returned to a sense of plainness when you thought you had been changed. I know these are dramatic terms. Let me set it in context with a story. Because the first two challenges when it comes to saying yes to inspiration are understanding the nature of inspiration and understanding ourselves within it. My story that I wish to share with you as a model for us to break this open comes from when I was in second grade. And I know we're all adults here, but I think that you can extrapolate and relate to the story in your own life. And it was time for our first Holy Communion. I grew up Catholic, and I'm not Catholic anymore, but it is a rich part of my spirituality. We did the normal prep for any type of ceremony. We learned what the ceremony meant. We practiced physically for it. We were partnered up. Even for First Holy Communions, you go shopping for special clothes. So my mom took me out and we got my favorite dress and a veil that made me feel very beautiful. And the day for the First Communion came. Well, we partnered up. Carlos was my partner. I can still remember him clearly. And we walked down the center aisle. It was very exciting. And then we all moved into our seats. And about 2/3 the way through the liturgy, we got up and we were the first ones to receive communion, the Eucharist. I know that my classmates, just like me, were really excited, but I had no idea what to expect. When I came up and received communion for the first time, my entire body was filled with so much joy. My heart felt broken wide open. And the joy was so great that everything around me turned into a sea of white gold. Even as I looked at my classmates, they were like these little columns of this white gold light. I have no idea how I made it back to my seat, but I did. And I was kneeling there and I was trying to contain myself because I wanted to dance or get up or shout. The joy was so great. And I remember looking at my classmates thinking, they are so mature. I wish I could be like them. They're so recollected. Well, the liturgy ended. We went on to the party. And then towards the end of the party, I went out by myself to a grotto. Close by the church, there was a place that had been set up to honor an apparition of Mary called Our Lady of Fatima. I loved Mary, and I still love Mary. And I knelt down next to the 3 statues of the little children that had the apparition in Portugal many years ago. And I looked up to Mary. And I felt so inspired. And I made all these promises. I was going to say 4 rosaries a day. I was going to do all these special acts of service for my family. I made commitments around my school. And I felt that I had arrived, and I would not only stay there in that feeling, but that I would carry out everything that I promised to Mary, whom I loved. Well, the next day, I still felt really inspired, and I carried it all out. The day after, I didn't carry it all out. I probably did 1 of the 4 rosaries. The day after, it waned more. The day after, it waned more. Until there came a point that I had failed at every single commitment. And I thought about it. I felt like a failure. I thought, what is wrong with me that I would receive so much inspiration and not be able to stay there and not be able to stay fulfilled? It was a setup. I said yes to the inspiration because it arose so spontaneously. It was truly a gift. But I didn't understand what the inspiration was, and I didn't understand myself. So let's take that first challenge. What is the nature of inspiration? For me, in my belief system, it is a spontaneous arising from within of source, life force, spirit, God, at the very center of our being. And this welling up within is happening all of the time. However, there are moments when it's heightened, when it breaks through all our ideas and we are unexpectedly broken open, like I was. Think about a time that you experienced inspiration out in nature, or with something beautiful that happened in a relationship, or having a baby, or going to an inspirational talk where the speaker seemed to speak a word that was meant for you, or a book that you've read, and everything seemed like the exact method that you needed and the answer to your own inner longing. What is that inspiration? It is, from where I stand, a taste of our essential nature. It is true. When I failed in all my commitments, I doubted that the inspiration was true because I didn't understand inspiration. These welling up happenings are true. Every time that you have felt inspired, it is true. The difference is that we have not yet grown to the point where we're stable in living that part of ourselves. So when you experience inspiration and then move out of the inspiration and doubt it, it's not because the inspiration wasn't true. It's because you're still in the process of growing into that stability of that inspiration. So how can we meet that challenge? Ask a different question. When I was inspired at communion, I immediately said, what can I do? I wanted to pour myself out. Instead of making action steps from the inspiration, ask this question: how do I stay inspired? You're shifting from the movement into action to the abiding in the inspiration. And then when you ask that question, listen to the answer and respond to the answer by acting on that. Then you'll find all the action steps that are in accord with the inspiration will come to you. Now, part and parcel with that is the understanding of ourselves. I had no idea as a little second grader that I couldn't do all those things. I felt invincible. I felt eternal because I was touching the eternal part of myself. When you experience inspiration and try to put all of these action steps in place, it's important to understand yourself, to get to know yourself, so that the steps you choose to take are true for you. They're not just an overlay of what you think you need to do or you've been told you need to do. How can we meet that challenge? How can we get to know ourselves? Begin to practice honesty. You're going to chuckle at that, right? Because I am sure you're an honest person. I am basically an honest person. This isn't about base honesty. This is about the honesty that gets to know all the unknown parts of ourselves. Honesty is a process because we're largely unconscious to who and what we are. And we have many mechanisms that come from our survival instincts that are in place to keep us really secure so that we can make it in this world, that we can live, that we can survive. However, being honest puts us on the edge of our comfort zone again and again and again. We're constantly changing because we're constantly learning new things about ourselves. There are many studies in the realm of honesty and what it means to be a human being. One notion that I love is called cognitive dissonance. This is the study that has been shown that as human beings, we massage the truth in order to remain secure. So that we'll put our security before what is before us as true. Well, how can we work with this? Let me give you a very simple practice. Begin to notice This is noticing without self-judgment. This is not noticing and off with your head. This is noticing with curiosity and wonder. Begin to notice in your day when you massage the truth. Just simply notice it. Oh, wow, what I said there wasn't quite what I believe or what I think or who I am. And if you'd like to be a little more adventurous, you can challenge yourself. And when you notice you massage the truth, correct yourself, not with guilt or blame or judgment, but with great simplicity. For instance, if you're at work and with a coworker or a boss, you present yourself to be something you're not, you could return to that person and say, you know, what I said there, that's not actually true. What's more true is this. It will infuse lightness in your relationships, and you open up to get to know yourself. So saying yes can be met. You can say yes more and more by understanding the nature of inspiration as an unceasing, spontaneous arising from within that you're learning to recognize more and more, and by understanding yourself, which understands that you have some ways that you're really showing up and other ways that you're learning to show up, that you're not showing up yet. Well, the third challenge to saying yes, and I present these challenges so that you can say yes more and more. It goes into the next video where we'll talk more about what it means to stay in our yes. There are so many ways that we can learn from that initial inspiration how to carry that juice and be that juice more and more and more in our lives. So the third challenge, getting us ready, tilling the soil for the saying yes part, is an adage. I remember the slogan back, I think it might have been the late 70s, no pain, no gain. The adage is that to grow, to truly grow, necessitates pain. That the path is, by its very nature, painful. I believe this is a misconception. I believe that this is something that we are propagating as a way to contextualize our experience of discomfort. Now, don't get me wrong. When we say yes to inspiration and yes to that kind of change within ourselves, there will be uncomfortable moments because we'll be changing. There's stuff we're attached to that we'll need to let go. But the path itself is not inherently painful. My experience has shown me that the path is one of love. And the surrendering in to the rising up of inspiration comes from a place of the greatest consolation, hence the word inspiration. It is breath within us that brings life. No pain, no gain. I remember the ad that I quoted the slogan from. It was a black and white photo. I remember seeing it in a magazine. They probably made posters of it as well. And there was a man, you could only see his abdomen and his pecs, and he was really cut. He had worked really hard at the gym, and he had beads of sweat. And it showed this hardness about the process. So what can be a solution to help dismantle this misconception that can limit us or scare us away from living an inspired life? I like to call it the process of reinforcing. Reinforcing is the action step of choosing what inspires us. Simply put, we choose the friends that inspire us. We choose to structure our time in a way that inspires us. We choose to practice the exercises that inspire us. We choose to move away from what drains us very simply into what jazzes us. About 14 years ago, I went up into the mountains with a friend, and we decided to get up before sunrise to drive to a beautiful vista and watch the sun coming up upon the land. We hesitated because we had had a great bonfire and we had stayed up really late, and we wondered, do we really want to get out of our warm sleeping bags? It was autumn in Maryland, and we decided to do it. So we suffered a little discomfort for the sake of an inspired moment. We set the alarm, we got the coffee in place, we got up in the morning, we got into that car and we drove to the vista. And within 15 minutes, the sun began to cast its rays upon the land. And slowly it rose and rose. And she stood at one end of the little vista platform and I stood at the other. And we were taken up in the bliss of this morning sunrise. 3 hours felt like moments. And when I recall that story to you, I feel it in my body, I feel it in my heart, I feel it in my mind. Because the moment was timeless. So I still taste it now. Reinforcing can be making the choice to recount your moments that are inspired just like that. In fact, when this video ends, I'd like to invite you to sit for a few moments. If you're a writer, write, and if not, just recollect. Let yourself go back into an inspired moment. Recall it with your senses. Feel the air, the sun, the thoughts that washed through you, the way your body felt, the actual storyline that was the setup for it. And after you let yourself be in that timeless moment again, sometime during the day, choose to share that inspiration with somebody else. See what happens when you recount it. Somebody that you trust, somebody that will really listen and enjoy it and celebrate it with you. Reinforcing is that our minds can get caught up in stress. I can't tell you how many people I work with who feel that they haven't had many inspired moments. But it's only because they're lodged back in the back of their memory and their neural pathways are caught up in a lot of stress. It's not that the inspiration's not happening, it's that it's not remembered, reinforced, recounted. Reinforced by moving away from the stressful thought into the inspired thought. And just see what happens. In fact, if you'd like to share it with me, drop me an email. So let me recap. Saying yes to more in your life is the greatest gift that you can give yourself. It is your birthright, your essential nature. Saying yes to undaunted peace, saying yes to joy, saying yes to embodying wisdom and insight, saying yes to focus that you realize all your gifts, saying yes to greater energy in your life, that you expand, saying yes to the fulfillment of all these desires is part of who you are. And those desires are meant to be fulfilled. If there is dissatisfaction, it's only to push you into the fulfillment of the desires so that what you need to say no to can be of the service to that yes. I recounted 3 challenges that come into saying yes. Our failure to understand the nature of inspiration, our failure to understand ourselves, and our acceptance of a common misbelief, no pain, no gain. There are many more that I'll be bringing up in future videos, but those 3 I think are pretty prominent. The solution to the inspiration: change the question when you're inspired from what do I do to how do I say inspired. And when you hear the answer to how do I stay inspired, act on that. The solution to the misunderstanding of self, begin to practice honesty in greater magnification. Perhaps take on the practice I mentioned of non-judgmentally noticing when you massage the truth. And if you're feeling courageous and adventurous, correct yourself. And the third, no pain, no gain. Begin to dismantle that within your psychology by reinforcing, by making choices that inspire you, by recounting inspiration. Now, in the next video, I'll be speaking to what does it mean to stay in our yes? And as we stay in our yes, what are some of the common challenges and blocks? And what are solutions? I'll be giving you 3 challenges again and 3 solutions. So I hope that you will join me. This is my love and my juice, and I would love to hear from you and connect with you. My website is KimberlyBraun.com. My email is Kimberly@KimberlyBraun.com. I have to laugh at that because when I left the monastery, I had a religious name, and I was intent on keeping that name because I loved being anonymous. And my spiritual director so wisely said to me, you gotta claim the name. Through the years, I've had to grow with what that means to have my face show out and claim my name. He, I think, was being prophetic because we are shifting as a humanity to realize that the embodiment of the greater, of the transcendent, of God, of spirit, of source, is us stepping into that wholeness and embodying it, which means we're meant to be alive, we're meant to be known and cherished and loved, and we're meant to love. So you can connect with me on all avenues with my name. My Facebook page is my name, my Twitter, my LinkedIn. Let's stay connected and let's grow in this relationship. Let me know your comments. Let me know if there are questions that came up for you that I could answer. Let me know what you'd like to hear more of. Let this, even though you're watching a video, be a two-way conversation, because I am at the service of you. If I could reflect to you the beauty of your soul, I would. May you see that and feel that today. Now, I want to end with a short story. This is an anecdote that I think you'll appreciate. There was an older woman. She was in her 70s, and she had been very faithful to her personal growth process. And she had reached a point where she felt like she had plateaued. In her meditation, she was asking about it. What do I need to do to feel more alive? And she waited for the answer, and it came later that morning. At about 8 o'clock in the morning, she went into her guest room where her grandson was sleeping. He was staying with her for about a month. She pulled back the shades to let the sun in, and she leaned over him and she shook him and she said, "Wake up." Well, to her surprise, he bolted his eyes open. He went, "I wake up." She jumped back and they both laughed. Then he jumped out of bed and he said it again, "I wake up." She let him know breakfast would be waiting for him and left the room. He came out, he sat down at table, "I wake up." All through the day, he kept saying it over and over again because he loved the feel of that joy. That feeling he had in waking up, he wanted to carry all through his day. And she got the message. And that is my message for you. Let's wake up more and more. Let's say yes together. Blessings. I hope to see you again. Kimberly here.